What's going on, everyone? Sid Gordon here with the Core Medical Podcast, and today I have a really good buddy of mine, Joey, who I'm super proud of. He's been with me for just about almost 5 years, an amazing staff member. Important to me that you show up when you're going to show up, you stay till you're going to stay, and support others in the office, and he does that perfectly. So, Joey, thanks for coming on today, buddy.
Thanks, Sid. What an intro.
What an intro, right? So today we're going to be talking about some information about some transition that we've had over the past year, just about almost now, with a business that you helped me grow, you helped me run. You're inspirational there for about 15 staff members. And it was a company called EasyT that we started about 4 years ago. For the patients that are out there, you guys are going to be receiving this if you were an EasyT patient, and you guys will give an outline, and it'll make you guys understand the level of commitment that we have towards our patients, what Joey brings to the table, and how important you guys are to us. So Joey, let's talk a little bit about EasyT. When you came aboard, you came from a totally different background than this, and talk a little bit about the EasyT process, what it was, how fast it grew, and the types of patients that we got to deal with then.
We started the company in 2019, and it's been just an exciting road. We've helped, I'd have to say, over 7,500 guys within the last 4 years.
Yeah, and the EasyT process, I'll let Joey get into because he knows more intimately than I do, but the design for EasyT was to make hormone replacement therapy available and cost-effective for those that can't afford it, right? And we've incorporated that now into Core. We've lost a lot of patients, unfortunately, due to the transition in states we can't operate anymore. But why don't you talk a little bit about what your experience was with that whole process, about people being able to find a company, because we were the only people out there.
Yeah, and as you remember, when we first started EasyT, the boxes, we were doing preloaded syringes.
Exactly.
So it was almost like TRT for dummies, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Like the syringes came out, the instructions were all laid out for you, and guys loved that. Unfortunately, we grew so fast that the pharmacy couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
Especially going into COVID when all the pharmacy techs were being pulled and going to hospitals. So we had to pivot at that point.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Like we grew so fast with EasyT that the pharmacy could not keep up with the amount of orders that we were placing. And the way the process worked was basically every month your shipment would go out. It would be 5 syringes with your testosterone inside them. Some of them had inostrozole as well, so it was only one shot. You had your estrogen blocker with your testosterone. Correct. And then also either HCG or gonadorelin or enclomiphene at the time.
Correct.
Right, and then the growth was the crazy part was this, is that you go from 0 to 3,000 patients with Core. We do a 10-week order or a 20-week order. So if you have, let's say, 10,000 patients at Core, you're touching that patient either 5.5 times a year or 2.5 times a year to get their medication out if they're on a 10 or 20-week protocol. With EasyT, if we had 10,000 patients, we're touching them 12,000, they'd be getting 12 orders per year. So it's like an astronomical difference. And, for the pharmacy to have to keep up with that was almost next to impossible. But how effective it was with the Midwest, people that really couldn't afford it and weren't educated. Talk a little bit about that.
I would have to say the most important states were Ohio and Louisiana.
Okay.
A lot of guys on the border of Texas as well and Louisiana. A lot of guys working in labor jobs.
Okay.
Guys who were working out on the oil fields. Once one guy would get on therapy, and then we would just start
snowball.
It would snowball throughout the whole company. So I would say our top 2 states back then was Ohio and Louisiana for some reason.
And so the reason why the company was started originally is that hormone replacement therapy is not inexpensive. When I first started in this industry, we couldn't afford to do what we do now, quite frankly, right? So our price points were higher because it's a volume play. Now it's a penny business for us. I like to think that even if you're, a Core patient, you come aboard and you go completely 100% on your protocol, that you're still getting probably the best pricing in the industry. But what I saw, the reason why we started this is that only about 5% of the country could really afford HRT. right? So then, we kind of, I'm going to say, Core kind of pioneered the industry, back in, 15 years ago when I came aboard, when I started Core. It was the time where the pill mills were all in place, okay? And all the people that owned pill mills also owned HRT clinics. And those HRT clinics were legitimately like going to one of those sushi restaurants where you'd get that menu, you just check that box off, and they'd send you whatever you wanted with basically no blood work and not seeing a physician, because they were running the pill mills, and like that was no risk anyways. And most of the people that are on pills, there's testosterone suppressed, and that's a whole nother conversation that you and I could have someday. We started right when that was happening. And then the feds came in and did a sting operation. We were working above board, and before you know it, almost every HRT clinic in South Florida was completely wiped out. We were the only people standing. And, it was great timing. And then what I noticed over years is more and more HRT clinics were coming aboard doing things right. I worked with Bill Falloon was inspirational to me, one of the largest supplementation companies in the world. He really helped me understand good protocol, good procedures, good blood work, which is still not industry standard, right? And basically, I was noticing that like there was 5% of the country that could pay for medication, right? But the sad part is that there's 9,000 HRT clinics and we're all swimming around in the same cesspool, and like prices are dropping, this, that, and the other. So we decided to, start EZT in 2019, and it just went crazy. And then what happened? How many other people tried to?
Well, COVID happened, and then the telemedicine laws just changed everything. But the
timing there was good too.
Yeah, it was perfect. I mean, a lot of people were working from home, so having an auto bill and an auto refill, as long as our pharmacies were working and FedEx was driving trucks, we were good to go.
Exactly.
And so were all our clients, because they were able to see their doctors. They never went a day without being able to email the medical staff or call myself or who was taking care of them back then.
At one time, we were up to about, I think, 9 onboarding specialists, and we had you and a few other guys there. And I've walked into that office to where it was just like mind overload with the amount of onboarding patients at the time. And, whenever you have a company that's that successful that quickly, you get the best compliment in the world, and the compliment's called the copycatters, right? So then what happened?
Then we started seeing other companies that were our competition, let's just say, at certain price points, where they started changing their website to look like ours.
Yep.
They basically just mimicked our entire process.
Yep.
I even caught a few guys that were coming on board as a patient just to go through the process with me. And then I would Google their name and see that they're they're an HRT doctor or involved with an HRT clinic. I think I shared a few of those with you.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's great.
But one thing I do have to say about the onboarding influx that we had, you really do an amazing job with hiring, because
Thank you.
when we were trying to find employees, right? And right before COVID happened, one of your friends or one of your patients from Core had his son.
Oh, yeah.
And they were a bunch of wrestlers
Yeah.
who were like in college, couldn't go back to school. And you were like, these kids are going to be workers. And I never thought in a million years that these college kids from Boca would come in, and they put this whole like competitive
grind together.
Yeah, it was older. I still talk to some of those guys.
That was like the best. I had a Christmas party at the house, and it was like, you had the core staff who's like, older, more mature. And then you had like this group of these wrestlers with their like smoking hot girlfriends in the back. And like, they're just sort of like, cool cats, right? Like just like great kids. And they actually, the best part is that every single one of those kids come from a wealthy family, and they all grinded like hard. And, we talk about wrestling a little bit on here due to like my uncle Kurt and, a lot of other guys I know that were big wrestlers, and, Jackie's brother, who's like one of the best ever. And that mentality of like wrestling is just like, it's like you against the other guy. If you don't wrestle every day, you're not going to win. It's just like that brutal mentality of just grinding and grinding and grinding really helps you when you get older in the work world. And like, that's why I have this philosophy and like outline that like I hire people that have done manual labor and have played sports. you know, that just like to grind. And those guys really fell into play. And I actually I forgot about that whole group, because I mean, they were awesome. Thanks, Phil Garraway. You know, I had that whole family there, and Phil's a dear buddy of mine. So thank you. But so when we had all these copycatters back then, it was like, so in the beginning you get frustrated, right? But at core, you know, everyone's trying to take our head off, right? Because it's just, we're a household name now. We're the largest in the military world, first responder world, the whole 9 yards. And unfortunately, you know, as I started to see the trend change through telemedicine, it was time to diminish and close down EZT. And unfortunately, we did lose quite a bit to our competitors, more than half, but that's okay. And I just want to talk now a little bit about the difference, and what we've done to make sure that those patients that have transitioned and maybe want to still transition after seeing this, they understand what's going on, and what we've done, and what we've done with pricing, and how it's been almost like a loss for core, but we've used our dollar cost average
Yeah.
to make it affordable.
I like to think of it as we gained the good half.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other half, they just want to believe the grass is greener on the other side. And some people, it's just the bottom line of what they can spend a month. They don't care about this, and this. But that's, I like to think of it as we got the good half of that.
Well, I mean, you know, what's crazy about the EZD platform that we had was, you know, we started it by thinking, all right, listen, it's going to be $99 a month, basically, you know, all in, you're like $129. And I didn't really think we were going to sell like peptides in, you know, Cialis, Viagra, BioBoost, all these other ancillary medications that people need, D3, this, that, and the other. And Joey came in, and he was essentially like a Matter of Mike over there, and just absolutely crushed it, helping people understand why that stuff was important. And what I'm really happy about with you, Joey, is you're not like a pushy sales guy. You're an educational salesperson. That's why like Matt and Mike are so good at this job, because they're educators, right? So number one, if you're going to a clinic and they're pushing medication on you, like run like a motherfucker, because the reality of it is that most of the time when that happens, those medications aren't even going to change your daily routine. Like, you're not going to see a big difference if your first round of meds is 7 different medications. Yeah. What we were doing at EZT is we were getting you your basic TRT, the same thing we do with core, and then slowly graduating you into other meds that the doctor may recommend, right? Sure. So for you to come in, I thought that it was basically, you know, we just made it super affordable for a lot of people. And the beauty of it is that some of those people were really wealthy people. Yeah, they just were nervous to try TRT, maybe because the price was higher and they didn't know if it was going to work or not. I mean, what are some of the things that you've come across in the last, you know, 4 years with those patients? Because I know you have some very well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I knew the industry before I got into it, right? I lived out in California in the 90s and the early 2000s, so I had my
experience. You guys know, Joey was a supermodel. You guys can find him. You guys can find him on Google.
But out in California, I ran with a lot of guys from Venice Beach when I used to train, and I was in the fitness industry and modeling industry and so forth. And a lot of the things that we would come across, we would have to drive to Tijuana for, right? Yeah. So I didn't even know what the word peptides were until I was introduced with EZT and met you. And, you know, there's so much research out there, and getting into the different peptides and different medications that could enhance your testosterone, could, like vitamin D, for instance. You know, so many guys didn't know that vitamin D could enhance your testosterone levels. And especially when you're taking it with testosterone, it just gives you a much better result. So, you know, bringing those ancillary products on was time consuming, more like you said earlier, with the educational piece of it first. I think the most important the important thing a salesman or a patient coordinator could say to somebody is that, you know what, that's a good question. I don't know. Let me get back to you. You don't want to sound like you know everything. And that took a lot to learn about the peptides.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many peptides, and there's so much research behind them. And the one thing I can suggest to anyone that's listening to this is that if you have questions on peptides, do not self-diagnose on Google. Like, talk to one of our medical staff. Like, we have 13 PAs NPs, another 4 or 5 doctors, and we have specialists that like specifically research peptides, constantly go to seminars, go to CE places to get their continuing education. Don't go on Google and be like, okay, yeah, IGF-1 LR3s for me, and go to some place and get it. Because guess what, guys? If you have issues, if there's something going on internally with you and you haven't done your blood work and found out if that's the right peptide for you, you could really be propelling yourself in a very bad position. And, that's all part of the process at Core, and we've gotten really good at it.
On that note, the guys going online, the Google shopping the peptides. I mean, guys, you're going to find peptides out there that they may say $29, $89, these ridiculous numbers. And these are peptides that are just made, they're not made for human consumption. They're just tested on animals. So there's a lot of research. If you search long enough online, you can find two sides of every coin to support both sides.
Yep.
But
the research drugs, we can talk about that because I did a lot of research on them myself. And there was a time in 2018 where the research drugs were everywhere. Those research drugs are not batch tested. They're not sterility tested. Okay, so you get let's just call it a 15 milligram bottle of Samorlin acetate, okay? Inside that 15 ml vial, there's no one that is making sure the potency of that bottle. Right. So there could be nothing in it, and how are you going to know the better, right? So to analyze that type of stuff, to make sure that you're not putting something into your body, injecting something into your body that's harmful, nothing is worth that. And I saw a lot of horrible things come from the research companies that were doing, this is not for human consumption right on the bottle. How do you inject that? Like, how do you, I mean, it's insane. And that's the way that they were getting around and making millions and millions of dollars. And, I think about the research companies out there, and, I have enough people that hate me because I'm so brutally honest about this business. So I'll just add a few more to the list. The research companies, it's like get rich quick scheme. It's exactly what it was. And whoever was doing that is just complete scumbags, because the reality of it is they probably created they created the enhancement of cancer in people faster. Sure. They sped that process up, and could have and probably killed a lot of people.
Yeah, when you're stimulating cells in the body, I mean, it could. Yeah,
it
absolutely.
Could. And who knows what they were putting in there?
Yeah.
So
I could say a few names, but I won't.
Yeah. Don't, please.
Because I still have to show my face around town.
So basically, to be completely transparent with everyone out there, about a year and a half, just under a year and a half ago, we transitioned and decided to close down EZT. The telemedicine laws have changed quite a bit. We've dropped about 7 states that we just can't operate in. It's just too much. The states that we can operate in, we're completely, DEA licensed. We have all of our licensing for the state boards of medicine, interstate medical licensing compact. I've hired, one of the top groups in the country to support us and make sure all of the licensing is good. And for us to have 2 companies licensed like that was almost impossible. So we had to make a decision.
Needless to say, we had so many different variables at EZT towards the end.
Yep.
At first, it was like a set it and forget it. This is the kit. This is how you're going to take it. You can't customize. To the end, where we were customizing kits, where we were almost like a mini core, right?
Yep, exactly.
But we just didn't have the infrastructure.
And, the risk, there wasn't a risk there. There was more of, hey, I want to treat our patients right. And for us to license 2 companies and to analyze all that, there would have been things that fell between the cracks. And the first thing typically that happens in a situation like that is the patient suffers. So for us to, to blend those companies together and have you aboard there and hybrid now that you're transitioning, really into a core patient coordinator, and for us to still to be able to support about 30 to 40% of those other patients is a good thing. We've done as best we could to keep the price point where it is for the people that really can't afford it.
Yeah.
We've increased the amount of blood work that we're doing identical to the core. Now their patients are getting the exact treatment a core patient is getting. And if they were with the EZT program, basically, for a slightly higher price. it makes me feel good that we can do that. It also makes me concerned that a lot of the patients now have gone to places that are just priced driven. They're doing a CBC comp metabolic and a testosterone panel, or they send you, what are those things they send you, like prick your finger?
Yeah.
The finger test, you've seen it all over there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I guess
it's a bait and switch move is what they would do. They would prick your finger and then they would say, oh, well, you're eligible for testosterone. Now you have to go get this panel done.
Okay.
So it was like they're already $100 out to get the finger prick done. And
why stop now?
Yeah, exactly.
And when you guys, and we're going to be listing our panel on the bottom of this podcast. So the patients that were with us at EZT now can get a chance to see, how we've evolved EZT into allowing them to be part of the core family. And I think that it was the patients that have come aboard have been very, very happy with the transition. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd like to say I created a little VIP section of my guys. And when I say that, I'm not saying this amount of money that you guys spend. It's the amount of different medications and how long you've been with me. How long I've had patients still that was for 4 years, over 4 years that have been receiving medication. I know about their families. I know about their kids. One just sent me like his company's T-shirts, and he's actually going to be down in Boca in the next few months. I'm going to have dinner with him.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
we still have our first patient at Core.
Yeah, we do.
Jimmy Redgate.
Yeah.
Now he works for Core. He was on this podcast. So going forward, like some of the goals that we have right now, we've completely eliminated all of the EZT marketing, the low dollar, because right now the way that the industry is moving right now is, from what I can see, and I do have a crystal ball from my consultants that are in place, is that the industry is moving into a place right now to where they're going to start hammering down. And I know there's a lot of places out there that have taken huge advantage of telemedicine and taken huge advantage of breaking borders with medication, and they're not licensed, right? We've done a really good job of protecting our patients, not just Core, our patients, from having an issue and not being able to continue on with their medication. I've had patients call me and say, Sid, I don't care what it costs. You guys customer service is so amazing. Just please make sure you guys never go anywhere, because I've dealt with 20 other places and it's miserable.
I mean, where can you find, none of our competition would give you their cell phone number. Zero. Right? So they have contact. They could text you, on Fridays and Saturdays, even Sundays. I've had guys text me, and I reply to them. I'm not in the office. I'll be back Monday morning. But that goes it goes pretty far with guys when they know that they can just not leave a message on an 800 number. And and guys, I apologize. There's been issues with the 800 number in the past.
Yeah,
that's just because we had so much going on.
Yep. I mean, we've staffed up tremendously now.
For sure.
And now, before it was, 65% of the company was onboarding, and I'd say there was some customer service and there was some back office people. Now it's like 65% of the company is customer service,
right?
And like 15% of the company is onboarding, and then you have your back office staff, which would cover the balance. With Core, it's interesting. A year and a half ago, we had 37 employees. Now we have 64.
Really,
right?
that many now?
That many now. And, we have 20 people on our medical staff. And, take a look at the people out there. Like, there's a lot of there's a handful of really good other companies. But when you're with a company that has one medical doctor, 2 PAs, and 5,000 patients, believe me, that's going to become a problem at some point. I mean, and there's just no way that you can get the level of care. And guys, you are taking a controlled substance, it's testosterone. Do I believe it should be in the same class as Xanax and Valium? No, but it is a controlled substance, and things can happen, and you should be monitored, and you should be getting blood work done a minimum of every 6 to 8 months. And if you're at places that you're not getting it done, demand that you get it done. Make sure your GP is seeing the blood work. Don't just take the person on the phone that has no medical background's opinion on how your blood work looks. If you're not talking to a doctor and going over your blood work, you're selling yourself short. And this is a longevity game, right? Like, for instance, we've both been in the position where we've had to come off testosterone before. it sucks, right? And if you monitor your health and make
I'm
sure
going through it right now.
you're going through it right now.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're monitoring your overall health and you're checking your cholesterol and you're checking your PSA and you're checking your liver enzymes, there's things you can do to stay ahead of, the issues of having those elevate, right? And there's companies out there, Joey, that are prescribing 400 milligrams of Testil and Angela
It blows my mind.
I mean, I think you see it, right?
Yeah. Oh, of course. And, DECA and all the other stuff, I can't believe that they're even able to prescribe.
Well, what's wild to me is this: if you take the time and spend it's just because it's a greed thing, right? So if you take the time like we did and form relationships with Westward, Watson, Pfizer, brand testosterone, you take 1 cc of that testosterone and you're at 1,000.
Yeah.
Right. So can you imagine? And a lot of these other places are still using generic testosterone, which is fine. Generic testosterone is fine. It works great for a lot of people. Generic enanthate works great. But if you're taking 2 cc's of testosterone a week, and if you're incorporating Nandrolone and Decanate to that as well, that also stacks on top of your testosterone level, you're probably looking at around a 1,500 to 2,000 testosterone, right? So that's okay for a little bit. But then what happens is your cholesterol starts getting bad.
Right.
And then your PSA might elevate. And then you have,
A long list.
A long list of problems.
Right.
And then if you're a drinker, forget about it.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Liver enzymes are
through the roof. And it's important that, you take the time, and less is more in this business. 1.5 cc's, for people that are in their 70s, which we have a lot of patients in their 70s and 80s. We give them 100 milligrams a week. And guess what? They've been at 200 or 90 for the last 10 years from their 60s to 70s. We give them a small dose, and the difference between 120, 130, 140 and 350 or 400, it's a game changer. So analyze who you're working with, what their intentions are, what your intentions are. If it's a money thing and you're not getting the correct care, contact us. We have ways to help you. I mean, and that's been a big thing, to have a company the size of the company we have, with thousands of patients, all the employees, amazing referral network, and be able to support people that can't afford it has been like one of my biggest, one of the things I'm most happy about. With that transition to EZT, it was slightly painful, right?
And it was a shock to a lot of them, and you and I were the face of the company for the past few years.
It was more you.
And you shot a lot of videos in the beginning, and then I shot a lot of videos, because the videos are just a lot more. It's easier to get a point across to guys than a text message. Most of the guys that are working in the Midwest in the pickup trucks aren't checking their emails several times a day. So we had to get creative and send them out videos of myself or you. And if you're listening, and my cell phone still is the same cell phone number. If you want to come back on board, shoot me a text. We'll send this video out. I'm sure you said, right?
Yeah, 100%.
We'll send this video out to you guys with a link to contact us, to get back on board, to call myself, or even Sid. And that's the one thing I love about you, Sid. Like, you've gotten on the phone with clients before, my clients that you didn't know, that either were in a good mood or they were having a bad experience. I mean, you can't make everyone happy. No. At the end of the day, you really can't. But you wanted to talk to those few people.
So one thing I want to bring up, which I want your background, your thoughts on this. So we have a few different types of patients. We have patients that come in from black market that are either really banged up or on their way to being banged up. We have patients that come in from other HRT clinics that are looking to transition for a higher level of care, right? Because we are specialists, right? I can promise that you will get better care through my medical staff, through our medical staff at Core Medical. And if you don't believe me, come aboard, get your blood work done, get a free telehealth visit. And if you don't like it, I'll refund you. The amount of the quality of care is amazing. So we have people that transition, then we have the people that are brand new to HRT. And you had a lot of people brand new to HRT when you first started.
Absolutely.
Most of our patients now, I'd say 60 to 70%, have done HRT or black market or transitioning from somewhere else. Explain to me the type of information that you get from a patient that just has never done HRT before and gets to start it now. A lot of them couldn't afford it before because every company was priced out of the box. We 100% pioneered the ability to lower price point, through Core's buying power and relationships.
Right.
But talk to me about what that looked like for those patients, and give me some stories of like how of the feedback that you received.
I think it's mainly from how acceptable HRT has come in the past few years.
Yep.
Break through that stigma. So it's guys that, one, don't know much about HRT, or they have a friend or a coworker that's killing it at work, running circles around them, and they're 10 years older than them, right? So those guys, you just have to, they see it right there, hands-on. And then for the guys that would come on, it's not you take a shot of testosterone and you're feeling good right away. There's the striking point can be around 45 days for some guys. But, like you said before, the first 20 weeks of therapy is, you feel like you're on top of the world, right? But getting those guys to get their blood work done, to see what they're deficient in, and dose them out properly, right? And get them on the right protocol.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of places out there that also talk about, anti-estrogen. Anti-estrogens aren't right for every single person, but they're right for the majority of the population, from what I've seen from our medical staff. And a lot of times you'll have people come in and they're estrogen dominant and they're not prescribed estrogen blockers, but they're prescribed testosterone. And being estrogen dominant is it's worse than being testosterone deficient.
Correct.
Do the research. You can find out. Come aboard, do a telemedicine visit.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that can go, blood pressure issues. It's bad. Mood swings are absolutely terrible. I don't know, those of you out there, one of my favorite stories is one of my very close friends starts on testosterone, and we're at my house in South Carolina, and we're sitting there, and we were watching a movie, and I cannot remember the movie, but it was Expendables or something like that, and like something weird happened in the movie, and it wasn't like bad. He's a grown man. He hunts. I look over, and he's fucking in tears in my living room. I'm like, dude, what's wrong? And I don't know what. And think about that movie. There was nothing like sad in that movie, right? And I was like, dude, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. I've just been so emotional lately. And I'm like,
here's a few nostrils.
I was like, dude, are you taking your estrogen? Because you just started on testosterone like maybe 15 weeks before. And I'm like, are you taking your estrogen blockers? And he's like, oh, those little white pills? And I'm like, yeah, you know what they are, right? He's like, you know what? I miss those quite a bit. And I'm like, well, do you have them with you? He's like, yeah. There was like, he took like one. Guys, those pills, you won't feel anything when you take them. But if you don't take them, you will feel something.
Yes.
And
everybody metabolizes hormones differently.
Exactly.
There's some guys that their estrogen just spikes. And if you don't take those pills, it's a maintenance. We're not shutting it down. We're curbing the estrogen, suppressing the estrogen.
Exactly. And those are other, there's reasons why we do what we do. And there are people that we've said, hey, listen, your estrogen's floored out. You can't take estrogen blockers anymore. And there's people that, have come from other clinics and they're like, their estrogen is like 280, should be like 30 max.
Yeah.
And their testosterone is like 1100. And that person is, I can promise you, is not somebody that you want to get into a road rage with, because they have a very short fuse. So there's a lot of things that come into play when you're trying to find that right clinic, Joey. And I think that I can comfortably say we do a really good job 99% of the time. And it all really stems from, that immediate staff, that immediate contact, with the onboarding specialists we have. Absolutely fantastic. They sit there, they data mine, they're finding everything out possible. Kind of mean where we are. And then it goes, to our medical staff. And the medical staff, by the time they're done there, it's pretty much, oh my God, I've never had a visit like that in my entire life.
Yeah, they're handheld the entire time.
Those telemedicine visits have become so important to Core Medical because, number one, nobody's waiting in a waiting room, frustrated because they've been there for an hour and a half and they want to rush out of there. Number two, they're comfortable. They're sitting in the presence of their own home, and there's a comfort level there to where they're one-on-one.
Yeah.
and they're not worried
More
about
vulnerable.
more vulnerable. They're not worried about what the person next to them in the other waiting room can
Yep,
hear.
absolutely.
The amount of information that they're providing is just tenfold compared to what we're getting. It's better medicine. Now, guys, keep in mind, we do require you to see your GP and get, a stethoscope put on you, blood pressure, the whole 9 yards. That's a must at Core Medical Group. So it's not just a telemedicine visit. And those guys out there that are deficient in testosterone and are meeting with their GP, make them understand, we are here to communicate with that general practitioner. Our doctors will speak to them. And we are not, XYZ HRT clinic, and no disrespect, Hialeah, that's just pushing bottles out the door. We're someone who wants to be in communication with your general practitioner.